Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. As players of Dungeons & Dragons and other tabletop RPGs, we can sometimes get pretty attached to our characters. They can act like extensions of ourselves, and allow us to live out fantasies that we otherwise could never experience. Though sometimes these extensions can bring out the bad parts and show the true nature of certain people, much like the examples in these next two D&D horror stories. As always, remember to roll a crit in that like button if you enjoy what I do here, as well as commenting and subscribing to feed the algorithm dragon so he helps the channel grow. With that out of the way, let's get right into the stories. The Infinite Degradation of Pauly by Reddit user Fearless Intention. A few years back, my mates and I were running a 4E campaign. Our DM, Terry, invited a friend of his that he met at a comic convention somewhere. This friend, who I'll call Brad, made a character named Pauly the PIMP, a chaotic evil human bard with, quote, numerous sex slaves. The rest of the party was my chaotic good Eldrin Avenger, George's lawful good dwarf warlord, W, and Catherine's lawful neutral diva druid, D. As you can see, this was not a match made in heaven. None of us except Terry had met Brad in real life before, although we had messaged on Discord while coordinating meetings. The reason for this being that Brad, quote, didn't give his phone number to just anyone. We had our sessions at Terry's house, which was within a half hour of our whole core group, and about an hour 20 from the town where Brad lives. Session begins with E, W, and D meeting in a bar near a library. D had been searching for information about the location of an artifact they had found and lost during one of their past lives. W was a regular at the bar, and E was a sellsword looking for work. In comes Brad, who introduces Pauly as having, quote, mad swagger, and being, quote, surrounded by tieflings. This was our introduction to his character, not just our character's introduction, so we were taken aback. Brad, as Pauly, begins to proposition D, saying things like, quote, hey purple chick, join my harem, and being generally weird. He also states his character to be wearing a black leather trench coat and a hat with a peacock feather. D brushes Pauly off and sits at the bar next to W, who strikes up a hearty conversation in true Dwarven fashion. E joins them soon after. Much conversing and backslapping on the part of the dwarf is done, while Pauly, quote, sulks in the background while caressing a curvaceous tiefling. That is what Brad said. We were beginning to question his intentions. Some roleplay later, D discovers that her memories of the artifacts she lost point to the fallen city of W's ancestors, and they intend to head there together. I joined them, offering my services. Pauly begs us to stay and, quote, have some fun. Terry the DM asks Brad if he's going to join the party, to which Brad says, quote, there's nothing for me outside this bar, and roleplays fondling one of the tieflings. After arguing for a bit, we collectively decide to set out without him, at which point Brad starts screeching about us, quote, ditching him, and asks Terry if he can command his harem to attack us. He says that there are 7 tieflings, all level 15 lawful evil rogues with enchanted broadswords. He also waxed poetic about their revealing leather outfits. Terry asked Brad what he wanted, if he wouldn't let the party leave without him, yet didn't want to go adventuring with the party. He said that he thought we, the party, could be Pauly's bodyguards, protecting him from all the, quote, creeps and gangsters who entered the bar. This was not what Terry had written and was not what George, Catherine, and I had signed up for. Brad wanted the whole campaign to be us standing in a bar killing street thugs while he roleplays pimping out his sexy tieflings. Now, you might be thinking that a dwarfen plate mail, a demi-angel who's lived 1,000 lives, and a sharp-tongued Eldrin merc are strange bodyguards for a pimp, and that there is no way Brad seriously expected us to acquiesce. That, sadly, is not so. He once again asked Terry if the tieflings can attack us and got shot down again. Brad wheedles some more, saying that, quote, it'll be fun, and, as Pauly, that there might be, quote, opportunities for career advancement, on the part of D, the only female PC. Well then. Finally, Brad huffs and says that he will go adventuring, but only if the tieflings can come. Terry wrote the campaign for 4 progressively leveling PCs, not 4 characters plus 7 level 15 tiefling rogues. This would not do. At this point, Brad revealed that he'd made character sheets for his entire harem. They had names and everything, as well as graphic descriptions of their sexual characteristics and attire. George commented that Brad should fuck off and go play Fatal instead. If you don't know what that is, I implore you not to investigate for your own sake. The curse of knowledge is real. Well, now I have to look it up. Oh god. What the fuck? Anyways, Brad went back to the, quote, bodyguards for Pauly campaign idea and said that he'd rolled stats for our first enemy, a chaotic neutral human barbarian who would, quote, come in off the streets and start raping Tiefling number 4. At this point, it became evident that Brad did not actually want to play D&D 4E, and that DMing a Fatale campaign was much more in line with his desires. Terry, faced with a power-grabbing sexual deviant at his table, gave up and threw Brad out of his house. He'd written the campaign for 4, so he homebrewed a quick DMPC in the form of a scholar from the Imperial Archive, who wished to accompany us to the ruins, and the session continued as planned. A few days later, we had our second session. During this session, George confided to us that Brad had been lighting him up on Discord, begging to be allowed back and graciously volunteering to nerf his harem slightly. George said that he told Brad to leave him alone, at which point Brad began spamming racial slurs. According to George, there is nothing more cringy than one white guy calling another white guy the N-word in a Discord PM. A week after this, Brad attempted to message Terry, saying that he'd bring Tostitos as a peace offering if allowed back. Oh wow, Tostitos? Well, all's forgiven. He also offered to make character sheets for more harems for everyone else, even the DMPC. I don't know how he even knew about the DMPC, but my guess is that George told him when he asked how the campaign was progressing without him. After this exchange with Terry, Brad went radio silent for a while and blocked all of our Discord save Terry's. Eventually, he began sending PMs to Terry again, mostly of an edgy, 4chan-ish sort. I'm told that Brad still messages him sporadically to this day, and the only reason Terry hasn't blocked him is for the entertainment value of his random musings. Honestly, what did Brad think was going to happen? That the DM that had just crafted an adventure and the players that were psyched to play it were just going to drop everything so that they could placate his sick and twisted fantasy of being a pimp? He must have, since he took the time to make character sheets for his employees. Honestly, humanity never ceases to amaze and sadden me on an almost daily basis, especially when reading stories like this one. Speaking of which, let's get to the next one. She Was in Love with Her Character, by Reddit user Crystal Clear. I had a regular group of D&D friends online. One girl who used to be our close friend no longer plays with us because she was obsessed with her character. It started innocently. She spent hours and hours drawing him, role-playing with him, inventing lore. It was cute because almost everyone in the group was brand new except me and my boyfriend. I love seeing new people join. She spent so much time drawing him that she decided to go to art school. That was awesome. For a month. Before it became very apparent that she had to draw more things than just him. She wouldn't drop out because her parents paid for it all, but wouldn't do the classwork because it was so boring and she only wanted to draw him. She joined the campaign a bit late. The rogue had a budding romance with an NPC, but when she joined, she started shipping the rogue with him so hard that our server was nothing but gay porn. The kicker? She refused to accept that her character was anything but straight. No romance formed in the campaign, but non-canon discussion led to her believing that the only valid outcome was for the rogue and him to marry happily ever after. Spoiler alert, the rogue chose the NPC. Oh boy, she didn't take this well. It was fine a few sessions, but the hostility surrounding the topic lingered in the air. She accused me of writing the main NPC of the whole campaign to overshadow him, because they both happened to have dead moms and be half-elf noble. Then it all accumulated to one big whiny message about how everyone hates her character and nobody cares about her feelings, and that I ignored her during gameplay. She literally spoke over everyone, it was a problem, and that my NPCs are hurting her feelings so I shouldn't use them. One of my players, the cleric, wrote a polite but blunt reply, pointing out how I'd been bending over backwards for her in and out of game. I wrote so much lore and made cool shit for him, and that she was acting like an egomaniac. Cue the meltdown. She left, claiming she shouldn't have to just take hate like that. Even though the other reply she got was, "Oh, so sorry you feel that way, I don't hate your character," and no one else had gotten involved. The worst thing the cleric had said was along the lines of, "You are saying hurtful things to the DM. That's a really selfish way of thinking." Meanwhile, I spent days trying to put out the fire. We talked it over. She apologizes for saying hurtful things. I explained my point of view as a DM, and she agrees so sincerely. The cleric apologizes for harsh wording and offers to make amends to her for the sake of the campaign. But she says she's still hurt by what the cleric said, and says she can't play with someone who doesn't like her character. I tell her to think it over, but she just can't handle criticism. So the only way she would come back is if I'd 1. Kick out the cleric who defended me, or 2. Let her play while she gives the cleric silent treatment. Neither option worked for me, so I ask her to decide if she's willing to talk things out with the cleric or not. And she says, "No, because honestly, I didn't even do anything wrong anyway." That just felt like a slap in the face after the days I had spent mediating. So at the point, I gave up. I tried because she was my friend, but her character did suck. Bad. He was 10 times as egotistical as her, but perfect in every way. He hated poor people, but was good. He was oh so sensitive, but constantly put people down and made snide remarks because, what, it's true. He was whiny and a ranger, but with the stats of a fighter because she wouldn't listen to advice. He threatened to kill needlessly because he wasn't serious. The first time was the pet horse of the rogue. Wonder why he didn't choose you, bud. And if his ego was bruised, he would throw temper tantrums. It was like traveling with Lord Farquaad. So yeah, sometimes the other PCs did bump heads with him, because he was a douche. And we weren't even mad that he was a douche. It was fun to RP at times. And we were also a really good group of friends. So we all tolerated his antics, because friends, am I right? But God forbid there are any consequences for his behavior. She would lose her mind and whine and bitch about how we hate him. Well, our friendship wasn't as strong as her love for him. Last I checked, she is still drawing him, and 20 variations of him, for romance visual novels, so I guess she can finally live out her fantasy of dating him. Wow, I mean, I personally can get pretty into the characters I created for my campaigns, but this is taking it to a whole nother level. It sounds like she was letting her character almost take over her life to the point that it was affecting her schooling, and she took any slights in game as slights against her, even though she was playing the character as a douche. Also, a word of advice if she happens across this video, never make ultimatums to anyone to choose you over someone else. 9 times out of 10, you won't like the result. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the stories. Have you ever experienced any character-obsessed players that got to this point? If so, I would love to hear about it in the comments. If you have a story that you would like shared on the channel, you can always go and post it to the subreddit r/DndDoge, or even just @ me on Twitter. As always, I thank you for watching, I appreciate all of you, and hope all your rolls are natural 20s. Take care.